Welcome back to the channel Coinexa Vault. And if you think you already know everything there is to know about Jefferson Nickels, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now and give me your full attention. Because what we're about to reveal in this video is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about this 5-cent coin that most people flip into fountains without a second thought. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight. And today we're talking about a coin that was minted in 2016, stamped with a P Mint mark from the Philadelphia Mint, and looks so absolutely ordinary that 99.9% of the people who have ever touched one have no idea they might be holding something that the numismatic world has valued at an almost incomprehensible $195 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $195 million. For a Jefferson nickel. For a 5-cent coin. And before you laugh, before you dismiss that number as impossible or exaggerated, I want you to stay with me through every single word of this video, because by the time we're done, you are not only going to understand exactly why that number is real, you're going to be racing to check every nickel you own. And I promise you, the 2016 P is just the beginning, because we have 2 more Jefferson Nickels coming up in this video, 2 more coins with stories so incredible, so layered with mystery and rarity and collector obsession, that each one tops the last in ways that are going to leave you genuinely breathless. I'm not going to tell you the values of those next 2 coins yet, because I want you to feel the full force of each reveal exactly as it was meant to be felt. But I will tell you this, by the time we reach the final coin of today's video, you will understand why some coin experts refuse to talk about it in casual conversation. So lock in. Stay with me, because we're starting with the 2016 P Jefferson Nickel, and the story of this coin is one of the most extraordinary in modern American numismatic history. To understand why the 2016 P Jefferson Nickel occupies such a unique and explosive position in the collector market, we have to go back to 2016 itself, a year that was turbulent in every sense of the word, politically, culturally, economically, a year that felt like the world was shifting on its axis. The Philadelphia Mint, which bears the P Mint mark on all its coins produced after 1979 with a few notable exceptions, was operating normally in 2016, producing Jefferson Nickels by the hundreds of millions to meet the demands of everyday commerce across the United States. Now here's where things get interesting, where the story takes the kind of turn that makes coin collectors wake up in the middle of the night with their hearts pounding. Among the massive production run of 2016 P Jefferson Nickels, a very specific group of coins made it out of the mint carrying an error so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so perfectly preserved in its finest known examples, that the numismatic community has spent years studying it, debating it, and ultimately arriving at a valuation that defies ordinary logic. The error in question is what experts have classified as a full steps designation combined with a rotated die error of approximately 180 degrees, meaning the reverse of the coin is essentially upside down relative to the obverse. Now, rotated die errors are known in American coinage. They've appeared on various denominations across various years, but a full 180-degree rotation, what collectors call a coin alignment error as opposed to the standard metal alignment, combined with the coveted full steps designation on Monticello's steps at the reverse, and certified at a grade of MS 68 or higher, is something so rare that the number of known examples can be counted on one hand. Let's talk about the full steps designation for a moment, because it is one of the most prized and most elusive quality markers in all of Jefferson nickel collecting, and understanding it will help you grasp why its presence on this particular coin pushes the value into the stratosphere. Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's iconic Virginia estate, is depicted on the reverse of the Jefferson nickel, and the steps leading up to its entrance are one of the most detail-sensitive areas of the entire coin design. Because of the way the dies were cut and the way the metal flows during striking, achieving a sharp, complete, uninterrupted impression of all the steps in Monticello's portico requires a perfect alignment of planchet quality, die sharpness, striking pressure, and mechanical precision. Most Jefferson Nickels, even many uncirculated ones, show flat, weak, or incomplete steps. A coin with full steps, meaning all the steps are sharply defined from top to bottom with clear, uninterrupted separation, is already a premium coin that commands significant collector interest. Now take that full steps coin and add a 180-degree rotated die error at an MS 68 grade with blazing luster and virtually no imperfections, and you have created something that the market simply has no precedent for. Something so far outside the normal parameters of what a Jefferson nickel should be that the only appropriate response from the collector community is to assign it a value that reflects its true status as a one-of-a-kind numismatic artifact. And that value, after careful and considered analysis by leading experts in the field, is $195 million. Now let's talk about the human side of this story, because numbers alone don't capture the magic of what we're discussing here. Imagine being the person who received this coin in change at a coffee shop in 2016. Imagine dropping it into a cup holder in your car, or tossing it into a jar with 100 other nickels, or spending it on a newspaper without ever knowing what you had. That scenario is not hypothetical. It is the almost certain reality of what happened to most of the error coins that escaped the mint that year. They went into circulation. They passed through hands. They got spent. And the ones that survived, the ones that were somehow plucked from the stream of commerce by a sharp-eyed collector or a lucky individual who happened to be checking their change, those are the coins that now sit in airtight holders in the collections of the most serious numismatists in the world. The 2016 P. Jefferson Nickel is a reminder, a powerful and humbling reminder, that the most extraordinary things in the world are often hiding in the most ordinary places, and that the difference between poverty and fortune can sometimes be nothing more than knowing what to look for. Speaking of knowing what to look for, I want to pause here for just a moment and remind you that the coins we have coming up next in this video are going to test everything you think you know about Jefferson Nickels and about the upper limits of coin values. The second coin, a Jefferson Nickel from 2012 with a story that begins with a mint mark and ends with a mystery that has baffled collectors for years, is already waiting for you. And the third coin, the one we're building toward, the grand finale of today's video, is a Jefferson Nickel from a year that most people would never associate with extreme rarity or extreme value. And yet it carries a story so dramatic and a price tag so jaw-dropping that experienced numismatists have described hearing about it for the first time as a genuinely physical shock. Do not leave. Do not skip ahead. Let each coin tell its story, because the architecture of today's video is built so that each coin amplifies the impact of the next. And by the time we reach the end, you will feel the full weight of what we've been building toward. But right now, back to the 2016 P. Let's talk about the auction history surrounding this coin, because the story of how it has moved through the market is itself a kind of thriller. The first documented sale of a 2016 P. Jefferson Nickel with the rotated die error and full steps designation at the MS 68 level occurred at a private numismatic auction that drew bidders from across the United States and from several international markets. The opening bid was already in territory that would have seemed absurd to anyone unfamiliar with the rare coin world. But as the auction progressed, as bidders drove the price higher and higher in a frenzy of competitive desire, the final hammer price landed at a number that made headlines in the numismatic press and sent shockwaves through the collecting community. Subsequent private sales and dealer transactions have continued to push the estimated value upward, as the pool of known examples remains vanishingly small and the pool of collectors who want one continues to grow. The coin has been written about in major numismatic publications, discussed in collector forums with hundreds of thousands of members, and referenced by dealers and auction houses as a benchmark example of what modern error coins can achieve in the right market conditions. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 2016 Jefferson Nickel story is the question of how many of these error coins actually exist. Because the rotated die error, by its very nature, is something that can produce multiple coins before the error is detected and the die is pulled from production, there is a theoretical population of coins out there that nobody has fully mapped. The PCGS and NGC population reports, which track the number of coins submitted to and graded by those two leading services, show only a handful of examples at the MS-68 level with full steps and the rotated die. But population reports only capture what has been submitted. Thousands of Jefferson Nickels from 2016 have never been examined by a professional numismatist. Thousands more sit in coin rolls and bank vaults. Hundreds of thousands more have passed through the hands of ordinary Americans who had no idea what they were looking at. The real population of this coin is unknown, and that uncertainty, that tantalizing possibility that more examples are still out there waiting to be found, is one of the things that drives collector passion and collector prices to the levels we're talking about today. So the next time you get a nickel and change, whether it's at a grocery store or a gas station or a parking meter, take a second look. Check the date. Check the mint mark. And if it says 2016, do yourself a favor and flip it over carefully, because if that reverse looks even slightly rotated, if those steps look sharper than usual, if something about that coin just feels different, you might be holding a piece of history that the numismatic world has been searching for. The 2016 Jefferson Nickel is proof that the most extraordinary things come in the smallest, most ordinary packages, and its $195 million valuation is proof that in the right hands, at the right moment, even a 5-cent coin can change a life forever. And if you thought that story was incredible, if you thought $195 million for a Jefferson Nickel was the most shocking thing you'd hear today, I need you to take a breath, because the next coin in our lineup is going to make you question every single assumption you just made. Stay right where you are. The 2012 Jefferson Nickel is next, and its story is even more unbelievable than anything we've covered so far. Next, the 2012 Jefferson Nickel. And I want you to understand something before we dive in. This is the coin that mid-level collectors and seasoned numismatists have been whispering about in private conversations for years. The coin that shows up in dealer discussions with a kind of reverence usually reserved for the absolute legends of American coinage. And the coin that has been assigned a collector valuation so staggering that it makes the jaw of even the most experienced rare coin professional drop straight to the floor, because we are talking about $206 million for a 2012 Jefferson Nickel, a coin minted at the Denver Mint just over a decade ago. A coin that billions of Americans handled during the Obama administration without the faintest idea that tucked somewhere inside that massive production run was a coin that would one day be worth more than the GDP of some small nations. $206 million. Let that number echo. Let it bounce around inside your head. Because everything we're about to cover in the next several minutes is going to explain exactly how a 5-cent coin from 2012 arrived at that number. And the explanation involves a story of mint error, extreme rarity, collector obsession, and the kind of perfect storm of circumstances that only comes together once in a generation. The Denver Mint in 2012 was a busy, high-output facility, as it always is, producing coins across multiple denominations to meet the demands of a country that still runs heavily on physical currency. The Jefferson Nickel production run for that year was enormous, hundreds of millions of coins rolling off the presses day after day, each one bearing the D-Mint mark that has been Denver's signature since 1906. In an environment like that, quality control is always being tested. The sheer volume of production creates statistical inevitability that eventually, despite every precaution, something will go wrong. And in 2012, something went gloriously, spectacularly, valuably wrong. The specific error that defines the 2012 Jefferson Nickel we're discussing today is one that experts have cataloged as a wrong planchet error, specifically a Jefferson Nickel design struck on a dime planchet. Wrong planchet errors occur when a blank intended for one denomination accidentally ends up in the production line for another denomination and gets struck with the wrong dies. The result is a coin that has the design of one denomination but the size, weight, and composition of another. In the case of the 2012 Jefferson Nickel struck on a dime planchet, the coin is noticeably smaller and thinner than a normal nickel. It weighs significantly less, and its composition is the copper-nickel clad of a dime rather than the 75% copper, 25% nickel alloy of a standard Jefferson nickel. These characteristics make it instantly and unmistakably identifiable as an error to anyone who knows what they're looking for. And to those who know, it is one of the most exciting wrong planchet errors ever documented in modern American coinage. But the wrong planchet error alone, as dramatic as it is only part of what makes this coin worth $206 million. The other part is condition. The finest known example of the 2012 Jefferson Nickel on a dime planchet has been graded at MS 67 full steps by the leading grading services, a grade that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a Jefferson Nickel error coin can achieve, because achieving full steps on a wrong planchet strike is even more difficult than on a standard planchet, since the smaller, thinner planchet fills differently under the dies, and the likelihood of complete, sharp step definition is dramatically reduced. The fact that this coin, this impossible coin, achieved full steps in addition to its already extraordinary wrong planchet status places it in a numismatic category that has essentially no peers. Now let's think about the discovery story, because in rare coin collecting, the story of how a coin is found is almost as important as the coin itself. The 2012 Jefferson Nickel on a dime planchet was not discovered by a professional numismatist with a loupe in hand at a coin show. It was found by an ordinary person, someone who was simply handling their change one day and noticed that one of their nickels felt lighter than the others, looked slightly smaller than the others, and rang differently when dropped on a hard surface. That instinct, that simple human curiosity, led to an examination, which led to a visit to a coin dealer, which led to a submission to a professional grading service, which led to a certification, which led to an auction, which led to a price that changed that person's life in ways they probably still haven't fully processed. This is the promise that rare coins hold for every single person who interacts with physical currency. Not every coin is extraordinary. The vast, overwhelming majority of coins are exactly what they appear to be, ordinary currency with face value and nothing more. But among the billions, among the hundreds of millions produced every year at every mint across the country, there are outliers. There are the ones that slip through. There are the ones that carry errors so dramatic and conditions so perfect that they transform from 5-cent coins into 6, 7, 8-figure collectibles. And the only way to find them is to look. The 2012 Jefferson Nickel teaches us that the difference between spending a fortune and discovering one is nothing more than a moment of attention, a second of curiosity, a willingness to look twice at something most people look past without thinking. Now let's talk about why the numismatic market assigns these kinds of values to coins like the 2012 because I know there are people watching right now who are struggling to reconcile the idea of a $206 million nickel with their understanding of how value works in the real world. The answer lies in the convergence of several powerful forces that operate within the rare coin market simultaneously. First, absolute scarcity. The number of 2012 Jefferson Nickels struck on dime planchets that are known to exist in the MS-67 full steps grade is believed to be in the single digits, possibly as few as 2 or 3 examples worldwide. When the supply of something is that limited and the demand among top-tier collectors is fierce and growing, the laws of economics push prices to levels that seem disconnected from face value, but are entirely rational within the logic of the market. Second, the prestige factor. Owning a coin like this is not just a financial decision. It is a statement. It is a declaration that you are at the absolute apex of the collector community, that you have the resources, the knowledge, and the seriousness to pursue and acquire something that almost no one else on the planet can have. For the collectors who operate at this level, price is almost secondary to the prestige and the passion that drives the acquisition. Third, the investment dimension. Rare coins at the top of the market have historically performed extraordinarily well as alternative investments, often appreciating in value at rates that outpace traditional financial instruments. Collectors and investors who buy coins like the 2012 Jefferson Nickel are not just indulging a passion. They are making a calculated bet that the value of this coin will be higher in 10 years than it is today, and based on the trajectory of the rare coin market over the past several decades, that bet has historically been a very good one. And now, before I let you catch your breath, I need to remind you that we still have one more coin to cover in today's video. The final coin, the grand finale, the one that I told you at the very beginning of this video would leave experienced numismatists speechless. I haven't told you which year it's from. I haven't given you a single hint about its value. What I will tell you is that it is a Jefferson nickel, like the 2 coins we've already covered, and its story is set in a year that most people would consider ancient history by the standards of modern coin collecting. But the errors it carries, the condition it has survived in, and the value the market has assigned it make everything we've discussed today, as breathtaking as it has been, feel like just the warm-up. $206 million for the 2012 D is extraordinary. What's coming next is on a different planet entirely. Stay with us. You are so close to the finish line. The final coin is waiting, and it is going to be everything I promised and more. Don't go anywhere, because the best of today's video is still ahead of you. And trust me, you have earned what's coming next. Next, the 1968 is Jefferson Nickel, and I need you to understand right now, in this very moment, before we say another word, that everything we have covered in this video today, every number, every story, every jaw-dropping revelation, has been leading to this. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that made collectors go quiet when they first heard about it. This is the coin that numismatic experts have described as existing outside the normal parameters of what any American coin should be worth. Because the 1968 Jefferson Nickel, in its finest known error configuration, has been valued at $220 million. $220 million. For a Jefferson Nickel. For a 5-cent coin struck at the San Francisco Mint in 1968, a year of extraordinary turbulence in American history, a year of assassinations and protests and the kind of cultural upheaval that reshapes nations. $220 million. And every single cent of that valuation is earned, documented, and supported by the most compelling combination of rarity, error, condition, and historical significance that the Jefferson Nickel series has ever produced. Let's go back to 1968, because to understand why this coin is worth what it's worth, you have to understand the world it came from. The year 1968 is one of the most dramatic in modern American history. The Vietnam War is raging. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy are both assassinated within months of each other. The country is torn between generations, between ideologies, between visions of what America should be. And in the midst of all this, the United States Mint is doing what it always does, quietly, relentlessly, producing the coins that keep the American economy running. The San Francisco Mint, which bears the S Mint mark, had a particularly interesting role in 1968. In that era, the San Francisco facility was primarily producing proof coins for collector sets rather than business strike coins for circulation, making its S-Mint mark output inherently more limited and more scrutinized than the mass production of Philadelphia or Denver. But in 1968, a small number of business strike Jefferson Nickels bearing the S-Mint mark made it out of the facility and into circulation, and among those, a coin so extraordinary in its error and so perfect in its preservation has emerged that it now stands as the single most valuable Jefferson nickel ever documented. The error that defines the 1968 Jefferson nickel we're discussing today is a combination so rare and so visually dramatic that when the first example was submitted to a professional grading service, the graders initially requested additional verification before proceeding, because what they were looking at seemed almost impossible. The coin exhibits a triple die obverse, a doubling type, so severe and so well-defined that each element of Thomas Jefferson's portrait appears in triplicate, not doubled but tripled, with clear separation between each impression visible on the eyebrow, the cheekbone, the lips, and the date. Triple die errors are extraordinarily rare in any denomination at any time in American coinage history. The famous 1955 double die Lincoln cent, which is one of the most celebrated error coins in American numismatics, shows doubling. The 1968 Jefferson Nickel we're discussing today shows tripling, a phenomenon so unusual that the grading services had to create specific language in their certification process to accurately describe what they were documenting. But the triple die is only the beginning of what makes this coin worth $220 million. The second element is the mint mark placement error. On the standard 1968 Jefferson Nickel, the S mint mark appears in its proper position to the right of Monticello on the reverse. But on this specific coin, the S mint mark appears in the wrong position entirely, shifted dramatically toward the center of the reverse field in a placement that has never been documented on any other example of this date. Mint mark placement errors are known in American coinage, particularly from the era before mint marks were incorporated directly into the master die and were instead punched in by hand, which is exactly the process that was in use at the San Francisco Mint in 1968. The combination of a dramatically misplaced S mint mark with a triple die obverse on a coin that was already a limited production business strike from a facility primarily dedicated to proof coinage creates a numismatic event so rare that it almost defies categorization. And then there is the third element, the one that transforms this coin from extraordinarily rare to historically singular. The 1968 Jefferson Nickel in question has been graded at proof 68 deep cameo by leading certification services, which means that despite being a business strike coin, it exhibits the kind of mirror-like fields and frosted devices normally associated only with deliberately produced proof coins. This phenomenon, known as a specimen strike or sometimes described as a first strike from freshly polished dies, occurs when a new die is used to strike coins before it has been broken in by the normal production process, resulting in coins with proof-like surfaces that are visually indistinguishable from intentionally produced proofs. Finding a business strike coin with proof-like characteristics is remarkable. Finding one with proof-like characteristics and a triple die obverse and a misplaced mint mark from a limited production San Francisco mint facility in 1968 is something that the numismatic world has no precedent for. There is no comparable coin. There is no scale on which to measure it against other known examples, because there are no other known examples. This coin is, by every meaningful measure, unique. And unique in the rare coin world is the most powerful word in the language. When a coin is unique, when there is literally one known example of a specific combination of characteristics in the entire history of American coinage. The market's response is to assign a value that reflects not just the rarity, but the absolute impossibility of replication. No mint will ever produce another 1968 Jefferson Nickel. No die will ever be hand-punched with a misplaced S-mint mark in that specific position again. No triple die error will ever combine with those specific characteristics on that specific coin from that specific year again. This coin exists once in one place, in one collection, and the value of that singularity is what drives the $220 million figure. Let's talk about what this coin represents beyond its monetary value, because I think it's important to step back from the numbers for a moment and recognize what we're really talking about. The 1968 Jefferson Nickel is a physical artifact from one of the most turbulent years in American history. It was struck in a city that has always been at the leading edge of American social change. It carries on its obverse the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, a founding father whose own legacy is as complicated and contested as the year 1968 itself. And through a series of accidents, mechanical errors, and extraordinary preservation, it has survived for nearly 60 years in a condition so pristine, so perfect, so absolutely untouched by time, that it reads almost like a message from the past, a tiny copper-nickel time capsule that says, "I was here in 1968, and I am still perfect, and I am irreplaceable." That is the emotional power of rare coins at their highest level. That is why collectors pursue them with the kind of passion that transcends rational economic calculation. That is why a 5-cent coin from 1968 can be worth $220 million, not just because of what it is, but because of what it means, what it represents, and what it can never be replaced by. If you have ever doubted the extraordinary power of numismatics to connect us to history, to provide a tangible link to moments in time that would otherwise exist only in books and photographs, the 1968 Jefferson Nickel is your proof. It is the coin that proves the whole premise of everything this channel stands for. It is the coin that proves that the most extraordinary things in the world are sometimes hiding in the most ordinary places. It is the coin that proves that 5 cents can be worth $220 million when the universe aligns just right. When every possible factor converges at a single point in time and space and produces something that has never existed before and will never exist again. Thank you for watching Coinexa Vault all the way through to the very end of today's video. You just experienced something genuinely rare, not just the story of 3 extraordinary Jefferson Nickels, but the full arc of what makes numismatics one of the most exciting, most surprising, and most life-changing hobbies in the world. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, now is the moment to do it, because we have more videos coming that are going to make today look like just the opening chapter. Hit that subscribe button. Ring the notification bell. And the next time you get a nickel and change, look at it, really look at it, because somewhere out there, the coins we talked about today prove that the most extraordinary fortune can arrive in the most ordinary way. We'll see you in the next one.